If I told you this was the headline, Patriots home winning streak snapped at 21, you'd be like, yeah, I feel great about that. Kansas City, that wasn't the win we should have seen last night. That wasn't one of those wins that makes you feel like we can go into Baltimore. We can go back to Foxborough and win. I don't know if there's an ugly win. That wasn't pretty, and it made me more concerned about Kansas City. First of all, you scored 3 points in the second half. You didn't adjust. You better do that against John Harbaugh a second time against Belichick. By the way, you had a punt blocked. By the way, you needed several officiating gaffes, and you can't run the football at all. It's getting cold outside. Everybody's got their winter jackets. You're wearing a windbreaker. I said last week, Minnesota lost last week against Seattle, and I said Adam Thielen was out, Delvin Cook was out. I'm like, that was a good loss. Minnesota did not step back to me. Kansas City won last night, and situationally, they were a mess. They were a mess. Kansas City's one of those teams that's really talented. It reminds me of Steelers teams over the years. You know, Big Ben and Tomlin, big emotion, but they're not buttoned up. And by the way, Pittsburgh beat New England last year 17-10, but they weren't really buttoned up. Kansas City's not buttoned up. 10 penalties, bad special teams, didn't adjust at half, a totally finesse offense. Baltimore's more talented than Kansas City, and they're buttoned up. New England's not that talented, but they're more buttoned up. We are now getting into serious big boy football time. You got to have your act together. And as pretty as the NFC is, the NFC's all pretty. It's New Orleans is flinging the ball all over the yard, and the Rams last night with Sean McVay, the misdirection and rolling out, and receivers running the football is pretty, and San Francisco's got Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy G, Emmanuel Sanders and George Kittle. NFC is Green Bay, finesse, fun, pretty. That's not what the AFC is. The AFC is teams that play outdoors in Baltimore in January, in Pittsburgh, in Buffalo, in Foxborough. And you are not a buttoned-up franchise. This is the time. The NFC's a fistfight. Everybody's physical. Baltimore's physical. New England's physical. Pittsburgh's defense is incredible. The Tennessee Titans are a physical football team. The NFC's pretty. You know, New Orleans going to play in a dome, and if the Rams got in, they play outside. You got a lot of pretty. San Francisco doesn't get bad, December weather. Buffalo, New England, Pittsburgh. Baltimore, you're not ready to beat those teams. You got a windbreaker. You're fast. You're slick. You got two of the guys in the NFL that are faster than everybody. But I'm watching that game last night, and all I can think of is you're Oklahoma. You're fun, but you can't stop anybody. You're Oregon with Chip Kelly. I will not deny Kansas City is so much fun to watch. I would love to see Kansas City and Baltimore on a fast track or in a dome. Lamar's flying around and Mahomes, Tyreek Hill are flying around. But I watched Kansas City last night, and if there's such thing as a bad win, it didn't really change seeding. And by the way, we know what New England's doing now. They're just collecting data. They lost to Baltimore, but they're collecting data. This is what New England does. They lost last year to Pittsburgh, but they're collecting data. They lost to Kansas City, but did you notice in the second half, New England actually held Kansas City in that offense to 3 points? They're collecting data. We've seen listen, I've said with New England, I don't think they can win a Super Bowl. They need an over-the-top playmaker, and Antonio Brown is their Hail Mary. I don't know if that'll work out, but that's their Hail Mary. Otherwise, I don't think they can win in the Super Bowl. But you don't want to go back there again and play. You do not. You do not want to go back there. And next time you go back there, it's 12 degrees colder and it's windier. And it may be snowing. And so much visibility you couldn't land a plane in Logan that afternoon. So I did not think that was a good win for Kansas City. Didn't change seating enough. And I just saw situationally too many holes. By the way, so did Andy Reid. So did their GM. So did Patrick Mahomes. I like what Patrick did. I like his leadership on the sideline, but overall not impressed. The headline sounds great. We snapped the Patriots' 21-game home winning streak. The results, far less impressive. Now let's go to a loss that I was really, really impressed with. The New Orleans Saints at home lost to San Francisco. But all you have to do is grab the box score. That was a who had the ball last. The Saints, 8.5 yards per pass. 116 yards rushing, half the penalties San Francisco did, and 1 time of possession. That was just one of those games. Drew Brees was too efficient. He scored too fast. I mean, it was a who's got the last serve at Wimbledon. That was fantastic football. Drew Brees said afterwards, and Drew's been in a lot of football games, but there was no bad team there. Now, San Francisco was a much more desperate team because if they lose that game, they can go down now in the NFC to a 4 or 5 seed and open on the road. But that's as good a loss as you can have in the NFL. I mean, they moved the ball. New Orleans concerns me because they don't have a vertical dimension. But after that, I'm like, okay, scoring's not going to be a problem. Listen, I watched that game yesterday, and I look at the NFC, and Green Bay is a finesse football team. Good, but finesse. Minnesota, we don't trust their quarterback, but I do like them. Seattle, boy, are they Russell Wilson dependent sometimes on offense. Dallas, please, I don't want to hear it. But you watch those two teams, San Francisco and New Orleans. They can beat you with physicality. They can beat you with a pass rush. They can beat you with a ground game. They can beat you in a shootout. They can beat you in a low-scoring game. And again, San Francisco was the much more desperate football team. I said yesterday and I said last week, I think San Francisco, I predicted, they'd go into New Orleans off that Baltimore loss and they'd win that game. When you get a really good team and there's a sense of, oh, my God, we have to win this game, those are hard teams to beat. But I also saw something this year. Drew Brees had 5 weeks off because of the hand injury. And at the time, we're like, oh, this is bad. No, it wasn't. Actually, Drew Brees yesterday looked fantastic. Remember last year at this time? Remember the last 7 or 8 games for the Saints last year, including the playoffs? Brees looked tired. He looked like he needed a 3-week break. Drew looks energized. He looks healthy. Again, older quarterbacks. I've said this about Tom Brady in the last 4 to 5 years. His December numbers tail off. He looks tired. The season is long. Football practice is hard. But, I mean, Brees lost his top tight end. It didn't matter. He was energized. And, by the way, that last go-ahead drive by the Saints, Brees was vintage Brees. He had 5-6 completions. The only problem is he scored too fast. The only complaint I have with the Saints, even after losing, I feel much better about New Orleans today off a loss than Kansas City off a win. My only complaint with the Saints is I think Sean Payton as a coach sometimes can be reckless. I think sometimes he's too aggressive, and I like my coaches aggressive, and I like my executives aggressive. But sometimes Sean is highly emotional, and I think we felt it there. I thought he was a little reckless. Some play calling I didn't like, but I can get over that because the Saints in a loss, to me, were more impressive than Kansas City in a win. Saints can still get that number 1 seed. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.